And we are live. Echo, can you hear me?
Yes,
It's
loud and clear.
wonderful to meet you all the way from Sydney. It's always wonderful to speak with a fellow Australian around the world during this interesting time.
Mm.
Just a quick reminder for those who are just joining us. So, Pride in the Living Room is an initiative founded by the Israeli LGBT task force Agudah. And they created this event to offer a stage and a voice to LGBTIQ plus Jews all around the world to share their truth, to share their story, to encourage empathy and community. And it is my pleasure to welcome Echo to the stage. So Echo, over to you.
Sure. My story is kind of interesting. I'm going to start at the middle, I guess, because that's to me the most important part when it comes to being Jewish and LGBT. Is it all kind of started or happened when I was in year 12, my final year of high school. And I knew I was trans for many years before, but I kind of had enough of it. I was going to a Jewish day private school, and I came out as trans there. I was the first person to ever come out as trans at that school. Um, the the administration knew I was trans before then. And so did my parents. They just kind of expected me not to do anything about it until I got to university. But that wasn't really working. I was pretty depressed and not having a good time. So I decided to come out and just like randomly come out and not tell anyone that I was going to do it. Um, so that was interesting. The school treated me quite well for me being the first person to come out as trans at a Jewish day school. Like they didn't really know where to, um, what to do, where to begin. Um, I was allowed to basically wear what I wanted for the uniform, which I ended up wearing tracksuit pants and like still the girls' shirt because um, there was no point buying a new shirt if I was in year 12. Um, yeah. So, and bathroom wise, I went to the like non-gendered bathrooms that were across campus, which was kind of sometimes a bit of a struggle because they weren't as often across campus as all the gendered bathrooms. So I'd have to go further than most people. Um, and camp was interesting. I ended up in a room by myself, which isn't the most reassuring thing that can happen, I guess. But yeah, so that was my year 12. That's kind of where it all really came to a point in terms of Judaism. And I mean, when I say Judaism, I'm talking about Judaism that's kind of imposed upon me. Um, in terms of my own Jewishness, I really see myself as like I accept being Jewish in a cultural way. You know, I go to Shabbat, I do many of the practices, but I don't really believe in it that much in terms of a spiritual way. I'm just not really a spiritual person. I don't believe in anything spiritually. Um, so that's kind of, I don't know, it's made it difficult sometimes when people want me to do something that is to them an important religious thing, and to me is just some basically ritual that is almost meaningless to me compared to the other rituals. And so it can be quite difficult, especially when it's stuff like wearing a kippah. I'm non-binary. I don't really want to do that. But because I'm now perceived as male, it's expected that I do that. Things like that. Um, yeah, I kind of touched on, I knew I was trans for years. One of my friends came out as gay when we were like 12 or 13. And I kind of just Googled it because I was like, I know what this is, but I don't really know anything about it. And I ended up on the LGBT and then the trans Wikipedia page and like, oh crap, that's me. Um, so now what do I do about it? And it's taken me a long time to kind of figure out what to do about it. I mean, I started hormones at how old? 18. I've been on them for 5.5 years. Actually almost 5 years. and I have changed a lot. I've changed names. Echo is a new one that I'm kind of going by. I changed names before that as well. And pronouns have gone through a whole variety of different things, because it's hard when you feel like, I guess, when you feel like you have to choose something so that other people will understand. I think that's a lot of what happens for me. What is a part of being in the Jewish community, you have to let other people understand what it is that's going on for you, or they won't, or sometimes they won't respect it. So, I mean, yeah, I've changed pronouns like 4 or 5 times. I like the current ones, AM, but people don't usually know what to do with that. And I'm usually fine with they, them as well, because obviously AM is a neo-pronoun, people don't know about it, but it's nice when people use the right thing for me. And interestingly enough, despite meeting him in a completely different context, my boyfriend is also Jewish and has, you know, gone through similar things in terms of coming, you know, being LGBT. And yeah, I don't know, it's interesting the way things kind of turn out. I think my parents are happy that I'm dating someone that's Jewish. But for me, it's like, why would you have been less happy if I was dating someone who wasn't Jewish? Neither myself nor my boyfriend are particularly religious or religious at all. I get that it's a cultural thing, but it also really is unclear to me as to why it's important. Yeah.
I'm happy to jump in here with
that would
some
be good.
questions. Well, Echo, thank you so much for giving us a bit of an introduction into your life. It sounds like you have had quite the journey. You know, you were the first the first person to come out as trans at your Jewish day school, or was it at your Jewish day school or any Jewish day school?
I think it was anyone in Sydney.
Wow. So
I doubt it would have happened at the other ones. Yeah.
What year was that?
2014. So yeah.
What was that experience like?
I don't know. It was I kind of did it on a whim, to be perfectly honest. And when you do things on a whim, people kind of get a bit annoyed because you don't inform them that things are going to happen. And yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I think everyone was just expecting me to just wait until university, when I don't see how that is like a reasonable thing to be asked to do. Yeah, it's just like I sometimes felt like my opinions and my like well-being didn't quite matter as much as keeping up appearances. Yeah, and coming out, like most of the people I was, or almost all of the people I was like in my year group were perfectly fine with it. Like they stumbled a bit, but they weren't like, there was no animosity. The teachers, some of them were great. Some of them said, look, I have no idea about this, but I'll figure it out for you. Some of them just didn't really know what they were doing. They were like, oh, I have to wait until, you know, the head of high school or whatever says that it's okay for me to call you that. And I'm like, the funny thing was, the name that they had been calling me was actually a nickname that was based off my legal name. So they weren't even calling me my legal name anyway. And the names were like fairly different. So it wasn't like they were like, oh, we have to call you your legal name, because they weren't doing that. It was just like, we just have to check that it's okay to call you that. And I'm like, well, I was going by Alex at the time. Alex is a gender neutral name. Like, there's no reason why you can't just call me that, even if you don't want to be okay with me being trans. Yeah, I struggled quite a bit. Yeah.
You spoke about keeping up appearances during those times before you came out, having to sort of be somebody else because that's what the society around you was comfortable with or what they knew.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that experience of keeping up appearances?
Well, for me, keeping up appearances has been in like a lot of different facets of my life, as well as being LGBT. I'm also autistic. A lot of that is about keeping up appearances of seeming like you're not, seeming like you're like everyone else, right? But in terms of being trans and whatever, it was just, it seemed to be that there was a pressure that people, my parents didn't want to have themselves be talked about or like, you know, be a big deal. They just kind of wanted to almost hide things away. And that's the kind of keeping up appearances that I felt, that I just had to hide everything away. And that kind of led to me being really depressed. Yeah.
And how did, if this is going in too deep, then feel free to skip this question. But throughout this project, I've had many conversations with people who have experienced a period of darkness when they were confused, when they were questioning, when they had self-doubt, when their identity was put in conflict with the larger world. So when you did have this depression, how did that manifest and how did you get through that?
I was very numb, I think. I mean, I still have issues with mental health to this day that are kind of unrelated, but partly related. But I go through this numbness where it's not just that I feel numb, it's that nothing matters. Like, if you can't feel happiness, why would you bother with doing anything? And that's the kind of thing that I mostly had and still to this day have as a symptom, I guess. And how I got through it, I don't know, internet, you know, reaching out to people who had similar experiences to me on the internet, because there was no one who was having similar experiences to me at school. So I reached out to those kind of people, and I mean, my parents and family did know that I was depressed, and I was on medication, which didn't really help that much, because the issue wasn't that I was depressed. The issue was that I wasn't able to be myself, and that was leading to me feeling numb because I was suppressing all of this emotion about what I wanted to do and be.
So at the time, you said that you felt a numbness and a depression because you had to suppress your these core pieces of yourself.
Yeah.
When did you begin to be able to express those parts of your identity more openly and more
Yeah,
freely?
so when I started at university, the first place I gravitated towards was the queer collective. I ended up being one of the queer officers for a year. I think it was a year, may have been 2 years, can't remember. And I got a group of friends who I made from that group. And also I studied computer science. So there are a lot of strange and unusual people who study computer science, and I say that in an endearing way. And I found groups of people that I, you know, could connect with, even if it wasn't necessarily the exact same thing. They were used to being in a similar kind of position. Yeah.
Hmm. Uh, you've spoken a little bit about being non-binary in a gendered world. Um, can you talk maybe about um, can you talk about a moment that you've had where you have really felt that there is representation of the non-binary experience?
Um, that's hard because there isn't a lot. I mean, the one thing I can think of is at work we have gender neutral bathrooms that say gender neutral bathroom. They don't say unisex. They don't say, disabled. They say gender neutral bathroom. They're multiple stalls. Um, so that's kind of been pretty good because it's not, I feel like not using the men's or women's bathroom is a bit more normalized in that culture. But honestly, there isn't that much representation where I've really been like, oh, I feel that and that resonates with me and that's really important to me. It's still kind of an uphill battle most of the time.
Mm. Have you felt that that gender binary within, like you mentioned a little bit earlier that you felt some genderedness within Judaism. Can you expand on that
Sure.
a little bit?
So the school I went to and the family, the way that my parents are, or the kind of Judaism they're from, is modern Orthodox. So we are um, we are in, when we go to prayers, it's male, female. That's the main thing that, or when we go to synagogue, it's male, female. And those are the things that really bother me. Luckily for me, actually, I forgot about this in high school in year 12, me and one of my good friends at the time were basically told, you can skip prayers because we know that you're not going to, we know you're not going to go to the prayers anyway. But if we tell you can skip prayers, then we don't look bad when people find out that you're not skipping prayers. That was the impression I got. Because I wasn't going to sit in the female section, and I still didn't feel comfortable sitting in the male section. And I don't because I'm non-binary. But yeah, there've been places where people have pushed me to be in one or the other section. Times when that's happened. I mean, for a few years, my parents and I went to a reform service for the high holidays, which was nice, but it still felt like they're doing this just to please me, not because it's uncomfortable for them in that kind of a way. So you can never win.
How did that make you feel?
Really frustrated. I don't want my family to be uncomfortable for me, but I still want to be able to do things that make me comfortable.
Mm. What do you like about Judaism, if anything?
I like the community. That's one of the big things for me. There's always someone knows someone who knows someone who can do this thing that you need to be done. That's really important to me. And just being able to recognize people and know that, oh, I've seen you 100 times before at all these different functions we've been to. I like that. And I do like some of the rituals because it brings people together. Like Shabbat. I go to Shabbat almost every week, Friday night with my parents and family. And we say prayers over the wine and the challah and the candles. And just that little thing, it makes me closer with my family. So yeah, there are definitely some good things that I really do enjoy.
Have you thought about the type of Jewish experience you might want to bring into your future family or have you thought that far ahead?
Not really, to be honest.
Fair enough. Um, so you mentioned that you're currently dating a Jewish person. Um, would you say that was by design, or that was sort of just by
It was
chance?
just by chance. He also does computer science tech stuff and volunteer stuff in similar organizations to me, and within the tech industry. And we just met at some places there. Yeah.
So you spoke a little bit about your when you first felt comfortable exploring your true gender identity, your true sexual orientation, and your sexuality. Um, did you ever think about, or uh, if you ever thought about things like hormones and surgery, were there support networks around you who could help you through those conversations?
Not really. So I am on testosterone, and have been, as I kind of mentioned, for 5-ish years. Um, when I started it, it wasn't really with my parents' permission. Like, I don't need their permission. I was 18. But it wasn't with, they didn't want me to do it, basically. And I didn't have support before then, because I was under 18 to do anything either. Yeah, that's the only like physical transition stuff that I really have experience with. But I found support again on the internet. You know, people on YouTube recording their voice every month on testosterone, and you know, people on, when it was still around, Tumblr. Or I mean, it's still around, but it's not such a big thing now. Tumblr, talking about their identity and expression, and you know what they're going through. Yeah.
What is it like, or what's your experience been being on the autism spectrum within the queer community?
It's interesting because there are actually many. If you're trans, you're more likely to be autistic, and if you're autistic, you're more likely to be trans. So there is some kind of overlap within that community. And so I found people who are very similar to me, who I'm friends with, and, you know, that just being able to talk about two identities that are different, but other people share the same experience is really important to me. But within the general LGBT community, like, people have been fine. Like, I mean, most people, I get a lot of, I didn't know you were autistic, kind of a thing. I just thought you were weird, kind of a thing. But I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm not okay with it, but I'll deal with it. Yeah, I don't know, it's interesting. It's made things both not that great sometimes and also really great sometimes.
So you mentioned finding really beautiful connections over the internet that helped you to navigate your own identity throughout the last 6 or so, or even longer, years of your life. For all of our watchers who are trans, non-binary, who are asexual, who are on the autism spectrum, who are queer, who are hearing your story and really relating to what you're talking about and feeling a connection with you. What would you say to those people?
You probably don't want to hear this, people, but be patient. All things come good in time. I mean, that's terrible to, like, that's kind of a hard thing to say and to hear, because I know if someone had told me that when I was however old, I would have just been like, no, that's ridiculous. But I think it is important, because as I've gone through more stuff and learned to be more patient. I've become a lot more comfortable with who I am in various different aspects of my life. Yeah.
Are there any, well, first of all, I just want to thank you for your beautiful words, Echo. I think that your story is really powerful. I think your words just then were very inspirational. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Are there any, so you mentioned various groups that you've been drawn to over your life that have guided you on your way. Are there any particular groups in particular that you would recommend to our guests?
If you're in Sydney, there's Diurnal, which is Sydney's LGBT Jewish group. And otherwise, I don't think I can direct you to specific groups because that's kind of something you have to find yourself. But tried lots of different media platforms. Like, you know, you can go on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, TikTok. You know, there's a bunch of different social media platforms that you can access to find people to connect to. Yeah. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Echo, what makes you smile?
Just like having a relaxing day, you know. It makes me smile most when I'm relaxed. And for that, I'm talking, you know, like a nice sunny day and, you know, just not having to do much and going for a walk and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Have you been following news at your previous school in recent years? And if so, has their relationship um, with queer issues evolved since you left?
I haven't really been, I basically have had nothing to do with the place since I left. Not just because I, you know, had a difficult time there, but it's just I've had other things to do. I had a better time at other places, so I want to remember those places. So I really wouldn't know, but I honestly doubt much has changed.
Would you say that you're out as Jewish in the queer spaces in which you inhabit?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, if it's relevant, I'll bring it up. I'm not gonna just like yell I'm Jewish to everyone, just like I wouldn't yell I'm trans to everyone. But yes, I'm definitely quite, you know, out as Jewish there, and I've had no problems. I've had a couple of people asking me questions, but apart from that, no, not really.
I have one more question for you, Echo, if that's okay.
Sure.
Well, just before I do, I want to again thank you so much for sharing your really, really beautiful story. I think that for our audience, whether they have lived a piece of your journey or if they haven't, I think everyone will be able to find something in your story that resonates with them. And yeah, thank you so much for being here with us at Pride in the Living Room.
No worries.
My final question to you, Echo, is after your life journey thus far, after the experiences that you've had, have you had the experience to pay it forward to those who are further back on their journeys? And if so, what's that experience been like for you?
Yeah, definitely. When I was like in terms of queer stuff, the thing that I remember most is being queer officer and having these people who would just come out of high school like I had a couple of years earlier, you know, having problems and, you know, wanting to navigate difficult paths and wanting assistance in that. And that was a really great experience. I'm glad I got to help people. And I'm glad that I actually managed to do something useful when I tried to help people. Um, yeah, I don't know. It feels really nice.
Hmm. I'm sure that there are many people out there who, whether they say it to you or not, there are people out there whose lives have been improved because you were their queer officer and you were there for them.
Thank you.
Uh, as we reach the end of our time together, do you have any final passing words for us?
Um, be kind to one another. I know that's really cheesy, but you know.
It's good advice. Here's to sharing our story in this moment and many more moments in the future. Thank you, Echo.
No worries. Thank you.